Hunt for the Bismarck, 1941. Operation to sink the German battleship. After the sinking of the British battlecruiser HMS Hood in the Battle of the Denmark Strait, May 24, 1941, the Royal Navy launched a massive operation to destroy the German battleship Bismarck. The chase, May 24 to 27, 1941. Battle of the Denmark Strait, May 24th. Bismarck and heavy cruiser Prince Eugen engaged the British ships HMS Hood and HMS Prince of Wales. Hood is hit and explodes. Only 3 sailors survive. Prince of Wales is damaged and retreats. However, Bismarck is also hit. It loses fuel and sustains damage to its bow. As a result, the decision is made to head for Brest, France for repairs. Bismarck's escape in pursuit. The British mobilize dozens of ships and aircraft. Bismarck must reach the port in occupied France, but the British are determined to sink it. Bismarck heads south while Prince Eugen separates and continues alone. On May 25th, the British momentarily lose track of Bismarck, but intercept its radio communications. On May 26th, ferry Swordfish aircraft from the aircraft carrier HMS Ark Royal launch a torpedo attack. 1 torpedo hits the rudder and Bismarck loses control. The fateful night of the Bismarck, alternative history of the battle, May 27, 1941. From the perspective of Bismarck's first officer, Karl Hoffman. Corporal Arthur Old Wolf Harrison, aboard HMS King George V, and bridge officer of Bismarck, Ernst Vogel.
Water in the lower decks was icy cold, mixing with an oily film from the leaking fuel. With each tilt of the ship, more seawater flooded into the rudder compartment. Bismarck had been critically hit by British torpedo bombers, and worse, a torpedo had struck our rudder directly. The ship was crippled, unable to steer, slowly turning in circles. I had only one mission: repair the rudder at any cost. My men and I waded through the water, trying to reach the hydraulic mechanism. My hands were shaking, not from the cold, but from tension. When I saw the extent of the damage for a moment, I thought we were doomed. The hydraulic pistons were damaged but still intact. If we could manually release the jammed rudder and use an improvised engine-based steering system, we might regain control of the ship. "I need blowtorches!" I shouted to one of the mechanics. "We'll cut the damaged section and try to move it manually." Time was against us. The ship shuddered from another distant impact. The British were closing in. Then it happened. Amidst the water, smoke, and noise, I suddenly felt the rudder shift. "We've got it! The rudder is responding!" Was it a miracle, or just the desperate determination of the crew? I scrambled out of the lower decks. My place was now on the bridge, to inform the captain that Bismarck was back under control.
From the perspective of Corporal Arthur Old Wolf Harrison, aboard HMS King George V.
It had been 20 long years since I first served on a warship. I had seen the Atlantic, the Mediterranean, and the nightmares of the First World War. But today, May 27th, 1941, I felt like hell had opened once again, and this time, it was about to swallow me whole. I stood on the deck of HMS King George V, our proud battleship, which along with HMS Rodney and several other ships, was hunting down the German giant, Bismarck. We all knew this chase had to end with its destruction. Hood would be avenged, and the British fleet would regain its honor. But fate is a cruel bastard.
Bismarck is no prey to be slaughtered.
When we received reports that Bismarck had regained control of its rudder, I couldn't believe my ears. This was supposed to be the final act: surround it, bombard it, and finish it. But the Germans had other plans. I saw it. Their ship was turning directly towards us, and that terrified me. Damn it, Bismarck was supposed to be wounded, damaged, fleeing, but instead it locked onto us like a tiger refusing to fall.
The news for Wilhelm Krauss came out of the blue. The ship can move again. Something in us has broken. We were no longer doomed to die. We were no longer just hunted animals. Now we were predators. The British ships were closing in on us. At their head, HMS Rodney and HMS King George V. We were alone, but we had more powerful guns. Our 380mm guns could penetrate any armor. We just had to hit them before they hit us.
The order came through.
Target Rodney! I clenched my fists around the controls. The targeting mechanism hummed as it adjusted. The rangefinder read 18 kilometers. Fire! The gun turret shook. The blast was deafening. The shockwave knocked the wind out of my lungs. The shell flew for several seconds before it slammed into Rodney's side. A massive explosion. Direct hit, came the voice over the intercom. Rodney immediately returned fire, but their shells landed just short. Bismarck was still fighting. Another salvo. This time, we aimed at King George V. Turret Bruno fired 2 rounds. One shell struck the bridge. The British ship erupted in flames. My throat tightened, but there was no time to think. Load, aim, fire. Hope returned.
The King George continued to accelerate, closing in on Bismarck. But then out of nowhere, the first salvo came. The Bismarck's gun turrets fired giant 380mm shells. 5,000 kilograms of steel came flying at us. One of them hit the bridge of HMS Rodney directly. I saw the explosion, the deadly flames, and the wreckage of the ship falling into the sea. Then another shot, this time not far from my position. The deck of King George V shook as if the hand of God itself had struck us. I cursed and gripped the handle of the gun battery tighter, where I was helping to load the 356mm gun. We had to respond. Charge, aim, fire. My whole body shook as our cannon fired. The weapon was so powerful, the pressure wave nearly knocked me to my knees. But the Bismarck kept moving forward, fearless, proud, fierce.
When the ship began moving again, the atmosphere on the bridge changed. Captain Lindemann, who had silently watched the horizon, stood up and gripped his binoculars firmly. "Hoffman, prepare for evasive maneuvers," he ordered. The British ships were caught off guard. They never expected us to regain maneuverability. They stopped encircling us and tried to reform. This was our chance. "Change course to 320, full speed ahead." We stood on the bridge, watching our massive battleship turn, gain speed, and charge directly at the enemy. It was madness, but we had no choice. If we remained passive, the British would tear us apart. Suddenly, a thunderous impact. We were hit by King George V. The ship trembled, but our armor held. "Return fire!" Our guns roared in response. Shells rained down on the British ships. One hit Rodney's bridge. Another tore through King George V's hull. Our precise strikes crippled the enemy. Then it happened. The British began retreating. I didn't understand. Just minutes ago, we were the hunted, and now they were fleeing. But we weren't going to let them go. "Keep firing!" A shell hit the stern of King George V. The deck collapsed, and the ship began to sink. Rodney was in even worse shape. After multiple hits, it capsized and sank. Silence fell over the bridge. We all watched the destruction of the British fleet. "We are no longer the prey," Captain Lindemann whispered. Bismarck was damaged, but victorious. We had done it.
Hellensteel.
Then it happened. Rodney caught fire. I saw it with my own eyes. The huge ship that had ruled the sea a moment before was torn to pieces. The Bismarck smashed her sides, her ammunition stores exploded, and flames burst from her hull, as if the devil himself had come up from the depths of the ocean. We were alone. King George V, damaged, burning, but still fighting. "Aim again," someone shouted. My heart pounded like a war drum. Then came another shot, right on our bridge. I saw the captain's face in the flash of fire. It was just a moment, but I'll never forget it. The look of surprise, the pain, and then he wasn't there. People around me screamed. Some were thrown into the sea by the pressure wave. Others stayed where they were. Dead. Flames began to engulf our ship. The Bismarck could no longer be fought. We had nothing. Our guns fell silent. Our engines slowed. The sea around us was littered with wreckage and burning oil. King George V began to list. I had no choice. I turned around and jumped overboard. The water was freezing. My body was as stiff as a rock, but at least I was still alive. I swam, turned, looked for the boat. I saw our proud battleship slowly sinking, defying fate for the last time. And across the sea, like the king of the oceans, stood Bismarck, victorious, invincible. Damn. Maybe we were wrong. Maybe he was the real wolf, and we were just sheep who got in his way. And then it was just darkness.
Epilogue. Bismarck survived the battle and managed to escape back to France. Repairs took months, but the Kriegsmarine now had its most powerful ship back in service. The Allies feared another confrontation with Bismarck. This battle changed the course of the war at sea. The German Kriegsmarine gained confidence and began more aggressive operations against the British fleet.
And I, as an officer who survived this battle, will forever remember the night we faced death and won.